Oh, kia ora koutou. Welcome to our latest Kōrero for Change. My name's Rebecca Graham, and it's my pleasure to be your MC, Master of Ceremonies for today's webinar. I assume everyone's all settled in and okay. Just sort of bringing you into the space. As you're settling into the space, welcome to the Kōrero for Change banking webinar, hosted by Access Matters Aotearoa Trust, and with support from our funders, Waikaha Ministry of Disabled People, Spectrum Foundation, Foundation North, and the J.R. Mackenzie Trust. Today's Kōrero looks at ableism and the everyday experiences that disabled people face when accessing banking services in New Zealand. Together, we will have a number of conversations about accessibility, including physical environments, digital platforms, communication, identity and security processes, policies and systems, and the attitudes that shape people's experiences. Through the voices of lived experience, alongside that of industry leaders and change makers, we're going to be exploring the challenges and the opportunities to build a banking system where everybody can participate. Banking is pretty fundamental these days. It's really important that everyone is able to access banking services with dignity, autonomy, and to fully participate in society. A truly inclusive approach recognises the rights of all people, and that includes disabled people, tangata whaikaha Māori, whānau haua, tangata Saia-Maoro and Ainga-Tele, deaf and neurodivergent communities. Everyday interactions, whether you're using an ATM, online banking, meeting identity needs, or engaging with a customer service representative, every interaction should be accessible, respectful, safe, and inclusive. Unfortunately, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we still have a lot of barriers. These include things like branch environments which aren't accessible, digital platforms which aren't accessible, important security processes that unfortunately exclude disabled persons, and communication gaps. True accessibility for banking is more than compliance. It's services and systems that are designed in partnership with disabled communities. It means recognising diverse ways of communicating. It means supporting diverse ways of navigating environments, processing information, and managing financial information. We're very proud today to feature speakers, panellists, and moderators who will engage in these courageous conversations, share their lived experience, and help drive systemic change towards a more inclusive and equitable banking system in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Let me just once more say a big thank you to our funders. It really is the support of our funders and supporters that means we're able to offer these sorts of kōrero for change. And we're really very grateful, as I mentioned earlier, to Waikaha, Foundation North, Spectrum Foundation and J.R. Mackenzie Trust. I'd also really like to recognise our friends at People First New Zealand. They have created the Easy Read program, so we're very thankful for that. And thank you for attending and for being here. Before we get into our speakers, just a few quick housekeeping notes. After each panel, you'll have a chance to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A option. So use that option and type your questions in. If you need to ask your question by speaking or signing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. Our team will then enable your audio and video during question time. Captions are available in two ways. you can click on the captions button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can also use the live transcript link that is in the chat. We will also put in the chat a link to our webpage and alternative formats. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. It will be publicly available on our Access Matters website. By choosing to stay with us, you're giving your consent to be recorded. Lovely. So that's the end of our housekeeping. And now I will welcome us into the space with a karakia. A karakia is a lovely way of bringing people into a space and just acknowledging as we're now settled in, we're oriented, we're ready to begin listening and conversing and asking questions together. So he inoi tātou, he karakia timatanga. Mauri oho, mauri tū, mauri ora kia tātou, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. And in English, life force awaken, life force stand tall, life force vitality for all present. It is my absolute pleasure now to welcome Neil Jarvis. Neil is a very well-respected digital accessibility consultant. Neil has worked extensively in digital accessibility, supporting businesses, government, and not-for-profit organisations to ensure that websites and digital systems are accessible to everyone. He has most recently served as strategy and policy lead at Intopia and works across Australasia and North America. Neil has previously held roles at Blind Low Vision New Zealand, where he led the digitisation of the organisation's talking book service and represented it on the board of the DAISY Consortium, a global leader in accessible digital publishing. He has served as president of the Roundtable on Information Access for People with Print Disabilities, which is a trans-Tasman organisation that promotes best practice and standards in accessible information. Neil is widely recognised for his leadership in advancing inclusive digital environments and in improving access to information for people with print disabilities. We're delighted to have Neil as our first speaker, and he will now speak about what ableism looks like in banking. Over to you, Neil.
Kia ora, thank you very much. And morena, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak today. So, ableism, what is it? Well, the Cambridge Dictionary definition of ableism is actually quite clear. It defines it as policies, behaviours, rules, etc., that result in unfair or harmful treatment of disabled people. And then it goes on to describe what disabled people are for the benefit of those who don't know. But it talks then about those behaviours and those practices make things difficult for people who have a disability, and also who put them at a disadvantage compared to people who do not. So there's a very clear definition of ableism, and I'm going to give you a few examples of where I think ableism exists in our current banking sector and current banking practices, which would need to pass that test, that definition test, if they were to be generally considered to be ableist. And I would argue that each and every one of the following does. And that is not to disrespect the great work that has gone on in the banking sector over many, many years to improve the provision of accessible services. A lot has happened. They deserve a lot of credit for work that has gone on. But if we accept that banking nowadays is one of the most important and sensitive things that we all engage in every single day, just like medical information is, then we have to hold it to a very high standard. Gone are the days when we used to interact with our banks only at the time that we went and drew out cash for the week and deposited our work checks in. And that was it, really. You spent the rest of the week just spending the cash from your pocket. That's different now. Today, we interact with our bank every day, pretty much. So what do we have? We have online apps and portals to start with. Those are areas which have seen great progress, and a lot of better access has taken place to banking services as a result of those facilities. Most of us are now able to access our banking whenever we want, whenever we want, even at 3 a.m. when we can't sleep. And for many disabled people, that's more common than you might think. So that's great. That's wonderful. But access to those services is only great if it is properly accessible to us as disabled people. And far too often it isn't. Websites are frequently designed poorly. Apps are frequently designed poorly, and getting around them is either difficult, frictionful, as they say in the jargon, or in some cases absolutely impossible. An example of that impossibility is when you come up against a CAPTCHA. A CAPTCHA is one of those attempts to determine if you're a human being or a bot, and they're there for a good reason. There's a lot of security risk around these days, as we know, and we understand why organizations, especially financial organizations, need to have that protection. They're there to stop us from being victims of bad actors. But you see, they also need to make sure that they're protecting the good actors too. And if you cannot log on to your bank account because it's behind a CAPTCHA, which is asking you to make a decision based on visual information and you can't see, that's a problem. Similarly, even if the entity has made an audible alternative to the visual captures, often those audible alternatives are hard to hear, even when you don't have a hearing impairment, and virtually impossible if you do. So it's a little bit like you get home one day and you find that the police have decided that in order to stop your house being burgled, they're also going to stop you from unlocking your front door. That's kind of not really what the idea was. And in any case, you could argue, people do now, that CAPTCHAs are losing the arms race. It's one of those things that probably its time has passed. Similarly, ATMs are a really important aspect of banking. And many of them have been accessible for more than 20 years, but the problem is many are still not. And even those that are frequently not maintained properly. And that can become a real issue. Then there's the cashless society. We are often interacting with merchants, not with cash anymore, but with our cards, with our phones, with our watches, whatever it happens to be. Problem is that very often there are inaccessible touchscreens. Those touchscreens literally prevent someone like me from being able to use a service safely and securely. Often the only way I could use those facilities would be to disclose my PIN number to the merchant, thereby breaking the terms and conditions that I have with the bank. And that can't be a good thing that we want to see. What's the solution? Well, make those touch screens more accessible. That would be great. But also, of course, in real life, I fall back on something like PayWave or contactless payments. The only problem with that is that those are often accompanied by a surcharge, and a surcharge, I would argue, is discriminatory if it disproportionately impacts disabled people as opposed to non-disabled people. I don't have a choice but to use PayWave. Other people do. So I regard that as a means of identifying that it has passed the test of ableism. And then there's terms and conditions that you sign up to or have to even before you open a bank account. And those terms and conditions are frequently hidden behind inaccessible PDF documents, or they are hidden in very impenetrable, inaccessible language, which can cause real issues for anybody, but particularly for people with cognitive disabilities. Again, some thought needs to be given to that. So in closing, what is the solution? Well, the solution is that we need improvements in the banking regime and the payments regime. Now, I mentioned the issues before about PayWave and touchless screens, touch screens, and I accept the bankers will always tell me, well, we don't control those devices, we don't control those terminals, we don't control even the ATMs that we install. No, you don't design them, but you do decide which are accepted in your ecosystem. So use that power, use that authority, use that sanction, if you like. My call to action is for a code of conduct which has consequences for any organization that doesn't live up to the basic standards of accessibility. Not just one that says how it should be done, that's important, but what will happen if you don't do it? And then if you think, well, yeah, but where do we start? Well, use standards. The standards exist. Those are available right now, and they will help you to identify the steps that you need to take in order to make your services accessible. And lastly, look at the good practices that are happening in other countries. Copy those, amend them so that they fit into the New Zealand context, but make your services accessible. Because what I've discovered is just in those examples that I've given, every one of them passes the ableism test. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Thank you for sharing these valuable and important insights on ableism in banking, and for highlighting potential solutions and things that we could be doing to make things better for everyone. Our next guest speaker is joining us all the way this morning from Australia. We're delighted to have Bruce Maguire joining us. He is the lead policy advisor at Vision Australia. Bruce has been a leading voice in accessibility and inclusion for nearly 2 decades now. Bruce is blind from birth, so he brings a great deal of lived experience and policy expertise to his advocacy for equitable access to information, technology and services. Bruce holds a master's degree in policy and applied social research and began his career at the Australian Human Rights Commission in the Disability Rights Unit. While there, he contributed to Australia's early accessibility advancements, including voluntary standards for electronic banking. Bruce has influenced accessibility across digital, media, and financial sectors. He continues to contribute to cross-sector initiatives, including work with the Australian Banking Association, and regularly engages with major banks in order to improve banking access. We're absolutely delighted to have Bruce here, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say. Over to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good morning, everyone. It's really a great privilege and a real pleasure to have the opportunity to contribute to the webinar today. I begin by acknowledging that I am working and resting on the land of the Darug people in Sydney, Australia, and that this has always been their land. I pay my respects to Darug elders and extend those respects to all First Peoples. I also want to acknowledge that disability is a white concept and that Aboriginal and Torres Strait people classified as impaired in Australia experience what the First Peoples Disability Network calls a double disadvantage in having to navigate prejudices against both groups. I used to be an amateur musician of sorts, and I still have many musical associations with words and concepts. So when I think of banking, the first thing that comes to mind is a song from the 1964 Disney film Mary Poppins. In the movie, 9-year-old Michael is taken on a tour of the Fidelity Fiduciary Bank where his father George works. Michael has tuppence to open his first bank account. One of the bank's directors sings a song that includes the line, "When you deposit tuppence in a bank account, soon you'll see that it blooms into credit of a generous amount semi-annually." And the song goes on to catalogue the investments that Michael will be able to make as his tuppence compounds: shipyards, collieries, canneries, self-amortising canals, foreclosures, debtor sales, bankruptcies. The list is quite extensive. But what is missing from that long list of ethical and not so ethical investments is becoming an accessibility leader and promoting the principles of inclusive design. I guess that's not surprising, really, given that Mary Poppins was set in Edwardian England in 1910, when the word accessibility had a very different meaning, and inclusive design wouldn't be invented for another 84 years. As a blind person, I have many more opportunities to participate in the community today than I would have had in 1910. But I also have accessibility barriers and corrosive ableist attitudes to contend with that could not have been foreseen 100 years ago. And I wonder what my predecessors would have made of Article 12.5 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which asserts the right to have full access to banking services such as bank loans, mortgages, and other forms of credit. Access to banking was important in 1910, but it's absolutely essential in 2026 because banking services now play essential roles in facilitating economic participation. As a person with a disability in 2026, if I don't have full and independent access to banking products and services, then I don't have full and independent access to participating in community life. When we developed the 4 voluntary Australian standards for electronic banking back in the early 2000s, we didn't have the UN Convention. What we did have was the Australian Human Rights Commission, which was called by a slightly different name back then, and the Australian Banking Association, which was also called by a slightly different name then. And they collaborated around a shared vision that people with disability must have an accessible and consistent banking experience in order to narrow the digital divide. Of course, we also had our Disability Discrimination Act, which came into law in 1993. The DDA does not specifically reference banking accessibility, but it does allow people with a disability to lodge discrimination complaints about the provision of goods and services. By the late 1990s, a number of DDA complaints had been lodged against the major banks. The customer-facing technology in the banking industry was developing rapidly, particularly in areas such as internet banking, and without any accessibility standards, people with a disability were experiencing inconsistent access and in some cases, no access at all. In 2002, the 4 voluntary standards were released covering ATMs, EFTPOS banking, internet banking and telephone banking. We did wonder at the time whether the fact that these standards were only voluntary rather than mandatory would limit their adoption by the banking sector. After all, if you hit someone hard with a stick, they're likely to change their behaviour. But if you offer them carrots, they generally just want more carrots. But the peak industry body had played a key role in developing the standards, and this created a strong expectation that its member banks would adopt them. A big advantage of voluntary standards is that they're usually easier and quicker to develop because they don't require such granular levels of consensus. In other words, there's more room to wiggle if you aren't entirely happy with a particular word or paragraph. Among the major Australian banks, there was genuine acceptance of the standards, and for a decade or so, they really did mean that the banking sector as a whole was more accessible than many other sectors. The process used in developing the standards was also a model for how industry can work with the disability sector to co-design access and inclusion. The same model was used successfully in 2007 to develop the guiding principles on accessible authentication, which were needed to ensure that methods of authentication that had emerged since the publication of the voluntary standards would not exclude or disadvantage people with a disability. The Australian Banking Association's accessibility and inclusion principles for banking were launched in December 2023, and that followed an extensive process of collaboration with the disability sector that began with a banking accessibility roundtable and the establishment of a banking accessibility task force. And again, the launch in December 2019 of the Australian Payments Network's accessibility guidelines for PIN entry on touchscreens followed a period of extensive collaboration and consultation with the disability sector. The major Australia banks now all have accessibility teams and are increasingly treating access and inclusion as a point of positive difference and competition for customers. In what I think was a first, a few years ago, one bank ran an ad on mainstream radio specifically targeting the blind and low vision community. And a testimony to the banking sector's commitment to access and inclusion is that in the early stages of the COVID pandemic, the Australian Banking Association asked us at Vision Australia to work with them to develop guidelines for how banks could ensure that physical distancing rules were implemented without creating barriers or undue stress for people who are blind or have low vision. But when individual banks have chosen to ignore the benefits of collaboration and co-design and have introduced significant technological change anyway, it has invariably led to disadvantage and distress and exclusion for people with disabilities and considerable and avoidable reputation damage for the banks. Without meaningful collaboration and co-design, you can't have a meaningful access and inclusion. If I were writing that Mary Poppins song today, it would go something like this. When you deposit Bitcoin in your online wallet, soon you'll note that it blooms into credit of a taxable amount with every crypto float. And my catalogue of solely ethical investments would include championing the needs of diverse communities and ensuring that vulnerable groups are not left behind by rapid technological change. Okay, so that doesn't have the poetic flow of the original tuppence, but it will move us further along the path of rights-based equality for people with disability. In Australia, we've been on a banking accessibility journey for almost 30 years now. We haven't arrived at the destination yet, but we've made much progress. And may this webinar today be a catalyst for your own banking accessibility journey with a New Zealand accent. And I look forward to sharing our experiences and perspectives along the trail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. It was really insightful. I really enjoyed listening to some of how Australia's managed to do things better. And I was quite intrigued. And I do like that idea that banks will actually start competing for our service by offering ever increasing accessibility features. Long may that continue. I haven't watched that 1964 Mary Poppins, but your amended version did make me laugh. I enjoyed that very much, even if it's not quite as poetic. We're going to move now to our first panel. This panel is the deciders and the thinkers. It's going to be moderated by Neil Jarvis, so I'll bring Neil back to us. He will be responsible for introducing our speakers. The deciders and thinkers will have 5 minutes each to answer the proposed question that's been given to all our panels. So Neil, over to you to introduce the panelists.
Many thanks for that. And it's great to be with everyone today to hear what I think will be some really great contributions from people who are deciders and thinkers, people who are going to be very influential in the next steps that we take towards accessibility, because the fact that we are all here today means that we are committed to that goal. As we have 4 members of our panel, our first panel today, and they will have 5 minutes to talk about their take on this issue. There will be time for questions after they have all finished. So if you do have any questions, do please write them in the FAQ area of the Zoom panel, Zoom chat area. And also, if you would prefer to indicate through raising your hands or any other way, then the team will be looking out for you as well. Our 4 panelists in this section are Dr. Rochelle Martin, who's a senior lecturer at the University of Otago. We have Nicola Sladen, who is the banking ombudsman. And we have Steve Wiggins, who is the chief executive from Payments New Zealand. And finally, Peter Harrison, who is the managing director of Think Place. So 4 distinct and diverse group of speakers. So I'm going to introduce them one by one and ask them to talk about their role and their take on this whole issue of accessibility in the banking sector. So we will start with Rochelle, if I may. Rochelle, you have 5 minutes. By my reckoning, it's currently 9:32. I'll give you a warning at about 30 seconds to go if need be. So over to you, Rochelle.
Kia ora, thanks, Neil. Ko Rochelle Martin tokunga. I had the pleasure of working as a researcher, a disability research advisor with Think Place on a report done on behalf of Westpac around accessibility and inclusion in banking services. And today I just really want to bring some of the stories and perspectives of the participants that we spoke to as part of that report to ensure that their voices are coming forward. And the report is extensive, and I really encourage you to read it. It's quite digestible, but I want to focus on an area perhaps we haven't heard about yet. And it's an area that came through really significantly from the people that we spoke to. And that was around managing the tension between a person's autonomy and independence with banking services, and also how that's managed by the bank in terms of how risk is managed and mitigated. The anti-money laundering legislation is a really important context to understand, and how that has impacted on people's ability to have choice and control in how they bank. So essentially what we heard was a number of, most people talked about that their autonomy is being limited by current rigidity around risk management processes, but also inconsistency around those processes across banks and even within banks. And that's sort of for, even though it's well intentioned in terms of maintaining safety and ensuring that that people aren't taken advantage of, it can ironically really lead to the independence. So one of the first things they talked about is difficulties getting the right authorities and support set up. And it's tended to be an on-off situation with very little ability to be able to access a customised approach to getting the right level of support to help them maintain their independence, not to take away from their independence, but actually allow them to use banking services, to be able to use their account. We also learned about, for instance, the age gap between the years of 16 and 18, when a 16-year-old is able to open an account, but the parent is still the legal guardian until the age of 18, and the issues that can happen in that age gap. Where often it was expected that the parent bring their child into a branch to show the bank staff the sort of parade my daughter was one of the phrases that was used by one parent, not wanting to bring in my daughter to parade her in front of bank staff in order to prove that she needed ongoing support with her banking. And because the inaccessible banking services and process often require more support, it can mean that the people are often actually having to share their banking information with others to navigate the system, and that can actually create more risk and more uncertainty for disabled people. So, for instance, Jacob said the main impact of inaccessibility is that the disabled people end up having to ask other people to do stuff for them. And it probably breaches everything that you're not supposed to do with a bank account. The other thing is around, I just want to read a quote from Evelyn. If you have an intellectual disability, it can be very challenging to get a bank account because you probably don't have a driver's license. You may not have a passport if you've never travelled. And why are you getting a passport just to open a flippin' bank account? They won't have a bill coming in their name to their address because they might live at home with mum and dad. There seems to be so little flexibility. I understand that some of it's around money laundering, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of discretionary mechanisms in there. When you know, oh, this is a genuine person, this person isn't about money laundering, this person just wants to open a bank account so their benefit can go in. Which I think sums it up as well. And even when people do use something like a Kiwi Access card to try and they find that these aren't consistently accepted by banks. And so it's very difficult. What I just want to finish with, we ended each section in the report with recommendations, and the main recommendations for this theme were: firstly, allow supporters and whānau to assist disabled people in banking processes and payments. Make it easier to give consent and prove identity. Provide basic accounts with restrictions applied. And let's explore some innovative approaches to risk management in collaboration with the disabled community. I just want to finish by saying that Westpac went on and created a basic account following this report, and I really want to commend them for that. It's fantastic to see that change is possible and that it is within the power and control and the influence of banks to make these changes, and it's fantastic to see those things happening. Thank you.
Many thanks for that, Rochelle. That was a really powerful presentation. When I read the report last year, I think I was constantly saying, yes, that's me. I recognize this. So really appreciated the work that everyone put into making that happen. And a link to that report has been placed in the chat if people want to go and download and read it, and I recommend that you do. If I could now introduce Nicola Slowden, who is the Banking Ombudsman. Nicola, it's great to have you here, and please give us 5 minutes of your wisdom.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you for inviting me to contribute to this very important discussion and conversation. As we've already discussed, banking is an essential service. Most of us need a bank account to receive monies, to pay our bills, our rent, and buy everyday items. And the way banking has evolved over time has been very significant. As has been mentioned before, we've moved from cheques through to cryptocurrency. And while that has supported some people's ease and convenience, it's also created some real barriers and problems. More and more services are digital now, and there are fewer branches, ATMs, and cash options. So that's where we come in to help with people's banking problems. The Banking Ombudsman Scheme is a free and independent dispute resolution service. We're here to support access to banking in two main ways. Firstly, by resolving individual banking problems fairly and quickly, but secondly, by using the consumer experiences, those lived experiences, to speak truth to power. We use the insights that we learn from complaints to try and influence broader improvements in banking practice. Many of the banking problems can be resolved quite quickly by getting the right people talking and clarifying what a fair outcome looks like. However, where a matter is a bit more complex, we can then formally investigate it and help the parties reach a solution. In some circumstances, this involves making a formal decision, which is binding on the bank. When we look at complaints about banking services, we consider what is fair in the circumstances, taking into account not just the minimum legal standard, but looking at relevant codes of practice and what good banking practice looks like. We can recommend compensation if we find the bank has not acted fairly and that the customer has suffered a loss. And that can include a direct financial loss or stress and inconvenience or other non-monetary outcomes like requiring banks to review policies and procedures. However, there are limits to our powers. Banks can make commercial decisions about what products or channels they offer. But despite that, complaints still provide a very powerful window into where systems and processes are excluding people. And we actively contribute to policy and law reform efforts by sharing the complaints, the insights, the consumer stories to strengthen consumer protection and to promote independence. Some of the common access issues we see have already been discussed. When people find it difficult setting up or using trusted helpers, representatives, or powers of attorney to support them with their banking. When essential tasks can only be done via one channel that doesn't work for everyone. You've already mentioned ATMs, smart ATMs that aren't appropriate or accessible for all. There's also been a significant reduction in particular channels, branches, ATMs, cash services. There's also communication styles and types that don't meet all consumers' needs. For example, the inaccessible formats, unclear explanations, etc. And also identity and security checks that are applied rigidly, which is a word that has already been used and don't work well for some older consumers or consumers with disabilities. So in terms of examples, we recently saw a case where a customer could not get through a bank's identity questions on the phone. One of the questions involved remembering the date the bank account was first opened, which they could not answer. They told us that it left them feeling like they'd done something wrong and that they might lose access to their online banking service as a result. We recommended the bank reviewed its identity questions and approach so it worked better for all customers while still keeping accounts safe. I'll also share two more recent cases which highlight the importance of banks taking a people-first approach, being flexible rather than rigid to ensure fair treatment of all consumers. An older couple with disabilities wanted their daughter to be added as a signatory so she could help with their day-to-day banking. The bank said no based on its policy. After we looked into it, the bank eventually agreed to add the daughter as the signatory, but we were concerned about the restrictiveness of the bank's policy, which it finally agreed to change. And as you note, it's that tension between ensuring that people's money is kept safe and people aren't subject to elder abuse or any other sort of fraud, but it's also not applying rigid approaches to every single situation. And the final case,
Nicola.
Thank you. The final case study is with a customer who had a stroke and used a wheelchair, who authorised her grandfather to help her with her money. Later, she wanted to change this arrangement, but she was unable to do so because she couldn't actually sign the written document. She visited the branch several times over 18 months to try and sort it out. She found it very stressful. The bank finally accepted her verbal instructions. However, she was very happy with the process. So we looked at it, we agreed and found that the bank had not treated her fairly. It should have taken other steps to confirm and identify her instructions. And as a result, we recommended the bank compensate her $7,500 in recognition of that stress. So in closing, complaints are not just about fixing one person's problem. They also put a spotlight on where bank systems or rules are getting in the way of people's access to services. By sorting out complaints and sharing the insights, the Banking Ombudsman scheme can also promote greater independence and accessibility to banking services. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, and thank you so much for that, Nicola. That, to me, is a really good explanation as to the important role that the Banking Ombudsman plays in the protection of consumer rights, as well as specifically around accessibility. I always believe that a complaint system is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing, which allows the service provider and everyone else to learn and move forward. So thank you for your role in facilitating that. If we move to our third panelist, who is Steve Wiggins. Steve is the Chief Executive of Payments New Zealand. And Steve, you have 5 minutes and I'll give you a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Neil. Morena koutou. Look, it's an absolute privilege to join you today. I want to acknowledge Access Matters Aotearoa and Whai Kaha for leading this important conversation. When we talk about banking and payments, we really talk about people's ability to participate in daily life, to be independent, to manage finances, to support whānau and feel safe and respected. At Payments New Zealand, our role is to help ensure Aotearoa has accessible, safe and efficient payment systems that work for everyone. We think a lot about the future, but we're equally focused on the reality that face people right now, and that includes understanding where barriers exist for disabled people across the payments experience. Payments are an essential infrastructure. As others have shared, someone can't easily pay their bill, receive income or authenticate themselves online. That impacts on their independence and their well-being. We know that disabled people still encounter far too many barriers. Some are physical, some digital, some procedural, and some are simply because the system wasn't designed with the full range of people in mind. Now, that is not acceptable in 2026. Accessibility must be treated as a core expectation, not something we retrofit or something that we leave up to individual interpretation. Neil's proposed code of conduct with consequences, I think, could go a long way to resolve some of those things. We know that there's a lot more to be done in retail payment systems where people are still being asked to work around technology and processes instead of processes working for them. I know Carolyn Young of Retail New Zealand also highlighted these issues in the last Kōrero for Change webinar on access to goods and services. But there are a couple of real opportunities, I think, that could make a real impact for Aotearoa. There are some great opportunities for open banking that certainly could enable better accessibility for payments. Open banking connections are built around secure application programming interfaces or APIs that let bank and third-party systems interact with each other. Now, our API standards, they're in place with the big four banks, and Kiwibank will follow later this year, offer opportunities that address some known challenges for accessibility and remove clunkiness from everyday payments. and that includes around security, authorization, and visibility of information. So this extends to open banking at the point of sale as well in retail situations, so not just online. So the process for accessible, low-cost retail payments is really strong. The foundations for all of these capabilities are in place with our version 2.3 standards, which were incorporated into regulation from the 1st of December last year. Now, with regulated open banking in place, managed through MB, there is an opportunity to ensure that MB delivers the policy settings with accessibility by design as a principle, and that this flows through to regulated standards that will really make a meaningful impact. The other opportunity is we're at a pivotal point within payments modernisation. We're looking at the architecture and standards that will shape our system for the next decade and beyond, with the Reserve Bank now taking a lead role in payments modernisation efforts. Now, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build systems that are accessible by default, not as an add-on, not if there's time, but designed in from the start. Modernisation just isn't about just speed and technology. It's about building a consistent, simple and trustworthy system that works for all New Zealanders. We can't afford to recreate today's barriers in tomorrow's technology and infrastructure. This is especially important if we want to make sure emerging technologies like agentic AI are connecting to systems that empower all users, rather than ones that reflect unconscious bias or ableism and deliver it at the speed of AI. So regulators like MB and the Reserve Bank have a key policy role to play in setting the right direction around areas like open banking and payments modernisation. The Reserve Bank in particular is gearing up with working groups around payments modernisation. So if engagement isn't happening already for your communities, I would encourage you to reach out to them and ensure that it does. Now, no one organisation, including Payments NZ, can solve these challenges alone. Accessibility does require a whole of system effort. Banks, regulators, digital platforms, telcos, whānau advocates and community organisations to work together. And there is those two key opportunities I mentioned that I think that provides us with a good opportunities. We also need to learn from overseas.
It's Kimberly here. Are you able to slow down just slightly for the interpreters?
Yes, sorry about that.
Take a breath after a full stop. Thank you.
And you have about 30 seconds as well. Sorry to kind of give you pressure from both sides.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you very much. There was a lot to share.
Yes.
So with that, there is also the opportunity to look at overseas examples on how they are treating these issues, and also look to encourage those that are working overseas to come and enter the New Zealand market as well. So look, we don't have all the answers, but we are committed to listening and helping create the conditions for practical and lasting change. So thank you very much, and certainly apologise to Kerry for speaking too fast. Sorry.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And also just to recognise the really important and critical work that Payments New Zealand does in the building of this infrastructure that will give us the accessibility that we all are calling out for. So our last panelist is Peter Harrison. He is the Managing Director of ThinkPlace, and Peter will talk for 5 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning, Peter. After that, we'll move into the Q&A, which will be slightly abbreviated compared to what you'll have seen in the programme, but I think that's in order that we give everyone as much information as possible. So last call for any questions you might have to put them in the Q&A. And while you're doing that, Peter, let's hear from you.
Kia ora, Neil. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Peter Harrison aho. So I'm with ThinkPlace. We're a research and design agency. Over the last few years, I've been really privileged to have worked on a number of financial inclusion initiatives. And so one of the things we do at ThinkPlace is we zoom into individual experiences, and you heard Rochelle talking about a few of those from the fabulous Westpac project. And then we're also zooming out to the whole of systems. So that's probably the unique lens I bring today, is of trying to span all of those spaces and how does it fit together in the middle. I think one of the things I'm reflecting on as we have this conversation is huge commonality and intersection of perspectives. This is not new. And so I'm left pondering, why are we still talking about it? Why is the change not happening at a faster rate? And there's a couple of things or perspectives on that I'd like to introduce into the conversation. I think the first one is really, this is more about opportunity, and we've heard the speakers speak already about fundamentally there is a right equity basis to this conversation, and there is also a commercial opportunity conversation. When 1 in 6 to 1 in 4 people in Aotearoa are disabled, why are the banks not viewing that as a customer base to serve and acting appropriately? I think the other opportunity here is banking plays a vital role in disabled people's lives, as we've heard, but banks play a vital role in all of society. Banks touch every single part of our economy and our societies. And so the ability for the banking sector to influence positively societal change, greater accessibility, greater inclusion across our entire entire societal sector is a big opportunity. One report that I'd just like to touch on, and acknowledging the great work from the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, to take a deep dive into one particular part of the banking process, and that is the opening of a bank account. And we've heard a lot already about some of those barriers, so I won't reiterate those. But one of the things that the RBNZ report did was to actually look at the process of opening a bank account and the barriers that people face, including disabled people, from the perspective of frontline bank staff. And it was really fascinating to see what came through. So first of all, 1/3 of frontline bank staff that were surveyed responded to say that within the past month, or monthly on average, they will be unable to open a bank account for 1 or more customers. So this is a major issue across all of the banks. The other thing that's really interesting is if we think about the culture of risk aversion. We've talked about sort of some of the regulations that are in place to deter financing of crime, and we've talked about how that becomes rigid. And bank staff reported that only 8% of them feel that they have high or moderate levels of discretion to apply flexibility. So there's actually a cultural issue that's playing out within banks that limits a bank's frontline staff members' ability to apply discretion. The second factor that we've seen play out, and this popped up across the Westpac work and also the Reserve Bank work, is capability of frontline staff. So if you're a frontline staff member who doesn't have your own lived experience of disability or caring for a disabled person, in the absence of the bank being able to provide appropriate levels of training, you're left to your own devices. So there's a big opportunity there. I think the final point. Peter. Thanks. The final point I'd like to make is across all of this work, what we're seeing is an opportunity or a need for all of us. So we've heard some of the legislative regulatory opportunities and needs, but we're also hearing that a frontline staff member in the moment acting kindly, acting generously with a disabled person can just make the world of difference in terms of an experience. So I think there's opportunity here for all of us, whatever role we play, to contribute positively. So kia ora koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for that, Peter. That was a really interesting discussion, and I think that kind of moves us nicely, actually, to the next phase of our conversation, which is the Q&A. that is going to be responding to questions that members of the audience have placed. And we have less time for that than we'd envisaged, but I do feel that the quality of the contributions that have been made have justified that. So we have another 10, 12 minutes, I think, for Q&A. Can I ask my colleagues, David, could you give us some example of any of the questions that are in the Q&A? I'm having some issues with my Zoom right now.
Hi, Neil. It's David here. So I have a question. Why do we hear peak bodies for the business sector say they care about accessibility, but then things like the pay wave surcharge ban legislation is advocated against by businesses and peak bodies? You can't have it both ways. Business and Retail NZ advocacy caused the pay wave surcharge ban to be canned by the current government. The National Party was supportive of the ban, but then changed their mind.
So I think the panelists probably can only respond in ways that represent their organisations and themselves. But I think it's a really good question that, as we know, the whole surcharge issue actually is a major contributor to ableism in the sector. So what do you all think about that as panelists? And maybe we'll give you all maybe half a minute or so to explain your feeling. And if I might I'll change the order around a little bit. If I might put you on the spot a little bit here, Nicola, as a banking ombudsman, what's your thinking on this that you feel able to share?
Oh, look, kia ora. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on surcharges. Without wanting to duck the question, we can't consider complaints about fees and interest rates. We can just consider the way they are applied and managed. So if it's a fee that is a bank fee or charge, it needs to be properly disclosed and accurately or correctly applied. And if the bank does that, we cannot hold them to account. But this is a significant policy issue, and I think I will pass the baton to Steve at Payments NZ to comment about it.
Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, we too don't deal with fees, but I think it's a really good challenge to put in terms of that positioning. The surcharging discussion is incredibly complicated because of the unintended consequences of some of the decisions that are made. And one of those is to making sure that we can still have competitive alternatives into the market as well, and they can actually make a living on that as well. So things like open banking want to make sure that there's enough opportunities for them to create viable alternatives in the market. So many different parties involved along the chain with so many different interests, and that's why it's been really challenging to get right. We've still got work to do.
Thank you very much, Steve. Rochelle and Peter, you have slightly different positions in the market, as it were. What's your feeling, Rochelle, on this particular question?
What I would say is in our research for the Westpac report, this was commonly talked about as being not just frustrating, but actually, it was referred to as the disability tax by many people. What I would say is that how do we all respond? Every time I go into a shop that has a surcharge on their pay wave, I pay the full amount with the surcharge, but then I tell them a story about how that decision impacts people. So I figure that's a little thing that I can do to try and raise awareness for people working in businesses. And often the manager's been brought out for me to share the story again so that they can understand the unintended consequence of that decision.
Good advocacy, thank you. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Quite simply, it's just sad. It's sad that it's a missed opportunity to address an issue that is so significant. And I think it speaks to the issues with doing things hastily. And when decisions are made quickly, we don't take the time to understand different perspectives and ensure that we're finding that intersection that works for everyone, for all service users, for businesses, etc. So hopefully there's some more positive work coming in that space.
Cool. Thank you very much, everyone. It's a burning issue and it's not going away soon. David tells me that we have another 2 questions already lined up, which is great. You've still got time to add any questions that you might want to ask. So please make use of the FAQ feature. And if you're having a problem with that, and put it in the chat, and I'm sure we can take it that way as well. But David, could you give us another question?
Will do, Neil. Okay, this is from Jason. I have a general concern that the review of basic transaction accounts via RBNZ capability has been left as a voluntary code as opposed to a policy/regulated standard, and thus open to the priorities of individual banks and providers.
Ooh. What do you reckon, Rochelle? You have a view on this?
I would suggest that this is look, we're in a neoliberalist society where it's all about competition, isn't it? And let's view it as if there's this amazing opportunity for banks to step up and offer banking options that actually it provides them with business growth opportunities. So you could look at it that way. That's one way of looking at it. I think the other thing is, though, that we've heard repeatedly that voluntary codes do not necessarily create systemic change. And that is a real problem because we know that the system, a competitive system, frequently, most often, does not consider the needs of disabled people.
How about you, Steve, from a Payments New Zealand perspective? Not necessarily having a view on the premise, but on the outcome. What do you think?
I think in terms of the outcome, Neil, you summed it up really well with your proposed code of conduct with consequences, because I think there is always an issue if it's left to that interpretation, then it just takes the easiest route rather than the right route. And from that point of view, so I think Neil, you're onto something, and that we need to get behind you to support.
Thank you. And Nicola, do you have a point of view on this particular topic?
Yes, look, we have advocated long and hard in relation to promoting financial inclusion by ensuring every New Zealander has access to a basic bank account unless there are very good reasons not to support that. And we have pointed to the UK where it is actually there is a legal right to a basic bank account. So that's something we feel very passionate about, and we're very aware of all of the barriers for many people, whether it's people with disabilities or people who have experienced financial hardship or have recently come out of prison. There are a whole raft, haven't gotten a physical address. There are a whole lot of barriers for people getting access to a basic bank account, and we don't think that's okay anymore. As we've talked about, having a bank account is critical to participation in our economy and society. So we would strongly support a requirement, a mandated expectation of a basic bank account. And we've said so much to the Reserve Bank too.
Oh, great! That's great to hear. Thank you, Peter. Any last thoughts?
What Nicholas said, I agree. I think the other thing I'm sort of pondering is what we see across a whole range of sectors is the relationship between regulators and legislators and between private business interests is really interesting. And one of the challenges for those organizations that are investing and are doing the right thing to see their competitors being able to deliver services without doing that is just not fair. And so, having that, the big stick, but also having the visibility of where regulation and legislation is going to give businesses confidence and to acknowledge the ones that are leading the way in this space.
Okay, now we've had a query from one of the attendees who has raised his hand, and I think they want to ask a question verbally, which is absolutely fine. David Harvey raised his hand a few moments ago. Can we bring David in and give him a chance to ask his question?
Neil, it looks like David may have left.
Good morning, Neil.
Oh, there
we
you
got
are,
Neil.
David.
Got
There you
David.
go.
No,
Welcome.
good morning, Neil. I think I sent you something last year sometime. This because I'm came on as someone with lived experience of following the rise of the fintech and open banking, and what's happening with Revolut and with the emerging stuff coming out, such as the Dosh, the Debut, the Emerge, and other players that are coming out with the apps. What I'm wanting to do is get involved with testing for accessibility of these apps. But the hurdle I'm facing is the identity verification. Now, I'm also attending the digital identity hui's that happen on the first Tuesday of every month. And I've raised accessibility with them as well. And that's one thing I've been there. You might have seen on my thing on LinkedIn about me wanting to advocate for online accessible identity verification. My data's mine. And particularly what I'd like to see is all the banks, not just the four, but all the banks, including the TSBs, the Heartlands, and so on, be hooked up to the APIs, but within, say, 2 years. And all banks should have at least some disabled people employed somehow.
Okay, that's actually a really important aspect, I think, of how we move forward. Do any of the panelists have any thoughts about how disabled people can be, first of all, well, most importantly, I think, how we can get around that identity issue, having to prove our identity in ways that are often not accessible to disabled people. And I think that was touched upon earlier, but it particularly happens when you're trying to prove yourself online as well. Do any of the panelists have any thoughts on that? And I'm conscious that we're about 2-3 minutes out from closing. So
I can remember, I vividly remember one man saying that why, for the online identity questions, like he's really passionate about trains. So could he have these questions about really complicated train questions rather than about his father's middle name, which he can never remember? Right. So could he choose the questions that he is able to respond to? So that's a very simple one, but I thought it was actually really novel.
Yeah.
Kia ora, Neil. It's Kimberly here. There's another question from the attendees. This one is probably for Nicola. Why are nearly all ATMs hard to see and access for someone in a wheelchair? Perhaps they say that's for the Ombudsman. Are you able to answer that one?
I'm afraid I can't answer that. I'm concerned to hear that there are still so many issues in accessing ATMs. I understand this is an issue that has been raised with the New Zealand Banking Association. The Banking Association has a working group of people with disabilities, and they contribute and raise issues. And I understand this has been raised in that forum. It may be appropriate for someone from, I think the next panel, we've got people from Westpac, could comment a bit more around that. But it is concerning to hear that it is still very difficult to access an ATM.
Yes, 20 years on from when ATMs became slightly more accessible, certainly to some disabled people, we still hear those stories time and time again. And that, to me, is why we need this code of conduct, which with consequences, because I just simply think it would be one of the simplest problems to solve. I'd like to end here by thanking all the panelists. It's been a really good conversation. and all the people that asked questions as well. Thank you for that. I'm sorry if we didn't get to yours, but it has been a really good conversation. So to all our panelists, Rochelle, Nicola, Steve and Peter, thank you so much for your time and for the work that you do in this space. And I'll hand back now.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Neil, and thank you to our panelists. We're now going to move to our second panel, the creators and doers. The creators and doers will be moderated by Callum McNimanen. Callum is a digital accessibility specialist and founder of Open Access, which is a consultancy that helps organisations to make their websites and their apps accessible for disabled people. Callum has lived experience of a vision impairment, and he combines broad digital technology knowledge with disability rights. He's previously worked as a web standards consultant at the Department of Internal Affairs, where he contributed to the New Zealand government's web accessibility standard and helped to build the centralised web accessibility checker that monitors public sector website accessibility nationwide. Callum also established the Government Digital Accessibility Forum. So an absolutely wonderful moderator for this session. So Callum, I will hand it over to you to introduce our panelists, and it will be the same format as the previous panel. Thanks, Callum.
Cool. Thank you so much for that introduction. So I am going to introduce our incredible panelists. So I'm going to start with Tanya Reid, who is a digital accessibility manager for Westpac New Zealand. Fun fact, a few years ago, I almost applied for that job when it was advertised, but ended up going to Internal Affairs instead. So yeah, that was an interesting connection to see. Another panelist we have is Jared Hutchison, Program Manager, Financial Wellbeing at Westpac New Zealand. So we've got two people from Westpac, which is very cool. We also have Jake Lilly, who's a Senior Policy Advisor for FinCap. And finally, our last panelist is Dr. Annette Rotherham, a research clinician specializing in aphasia, senior speech language therapist at Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand. So the way this works is each panelist will have 5 minutes to discuss a question, the same question that I put to them. And while each panelist is providing their 5-minute sort of speech, remember, if you're an audience member, you can add questions in the Q&A. And at the end, we'll go through those questions. So everyone start thinking of questions, and the more controversial, the better, I say. Okay, so I was wondering, could we start with Tanya? The question that I have for you, and you've got 5 minutes, is what is the role of banking in the process of access and belonging for disabled people?
Thank you, Callum.
Take it away.
Thank you. Funny about you applying for my role. You would have been amazing, I'm sure. Kia ora, everybody. I'm Tanya Reid, the Digital Accessibility Manager at Westpac. It's such a privilege to be here with you. So I focus on making sure our digital services work for everyone and on building accessibility into strategy, systems, and everyday ways of working. So banking is a foundation service. When people can't access it independently and with dignity, it becomes a barrier to everyday life. For me, the role in fostering equity and belonging is about designing systems where access is straightforward and doesn't require that extra effort. So equity and belonging happen when accessibility is built in, it's consistent, and it's trusted across digital, in-branch, payments, and support. So what's worked best for us is a balance of strategy and doing. So strategy creates accountability and direction, and doing makes it real for our customers. So on the strategic side, we focus on building accessibility in at the start of governance and delivery processes and not retrofitted later. And we build practical tools, resources, and training so teams can do the right thing by default rather than customers having to self-advocate. Independent checkpoints really matter. They help keep accessibility as a continuous improvement journey and just not a one-off initiative. A key moment for us was commissioning the Westpac Disability and Inclusion in Banking report. It's grounded our roadmap in lived experience and created a shared evidence base others can learn from. The report highlighted payments as a real point of exclusion, which we've heard about already. So when FPOS isn't accessible, people can be pushed into those unsafe workarounds. In response, we've made some practical changes like adding tactile markers to our newer FPOS terminals and creating accessible guides to help customers use those features. We also make information about our accessible products and support available on our accessible banking webpage. Tools alone aren't enough. Equity and belonging also come from people having confidence and capability. So we've invested in training and guidance so accessibility shows up consistently in everyday interactions. We test and listen continuously, including user testing with our customers, and our amazing accessibility employee action group helps us sense check our internal work. We also show up in community spaces. So at a recent blind low vision report launch event, I sat alongside a customer who was about to move on to our new business banking platform, and we spoke about accessibility. I offered some support if he needed it. A few weeks later, he messaged me to say he'd been using it with no issues. That's the difference. When accessibility is done well, people can bank independently and with confidence. We don't try to do this alone. We also work closely with our Westpac Group Access and Inclusion team and accessibility specialists. So for accountability, we're members of the New Zealand Disability Employers Network, and we've held the accessibility tick since 2019. The value isn't in the tick, it's that discipline of independent assessment and learning. We've made real progress and we know there's more to do, and we're committed to continuing to improve accessibility across all of our channels. We're also seeing a practical shift. Accessibility is starting to come up in business decisions, like when organisations choose who they work with or buy services from. So that's not a main reason to act, but it reinforces that accessibility is becoming part of good, responsible banking. The role in banking and fostering equity and belonging is to remove barriers to participation. That means building accessibility in from the start, designing for independence, listening to lived experience, working with experts, and holding ourselves accountable. When we do that, banking becomes an enabler of belonging, not a barrier. Thank you. That is from me. From me.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much for that. And you still had 30 seconds as well. So pretty good timing there. So our next panelist is Jared. And by the way, if you are an attendee, remember to put your questions in the Q&A so we have things to discuss. So Jared, you've got 5 minutes to discuss the topic, which is what is the role of banking in the process of access and belonging for disabled people. You've got 5 minutes. Take it away.
Yes, Callum. And yeah, I might have to steal Tanya's 30 seconds potentially. We'll see how that goes. I might have a little bit of leeway there. But yeah, kia ora. My name's Jared Hutchison. I am the financial program manager here at Westpac. So I lead our Managing Your Money program, which sits within our kind of financial inclusion team. So I'll kind of be looking at it from that angle around financial education. So for me, the role of banking and fostering equity and belonging is being a kind of a trusted tool, one that lifts financial confidence and provides support in a way that's honest, transparent and inclusive of all the communities that we serve. So one of the biggest barriers that we see when we're working out in the community isn't necessarily capability, it's confidence. So often there's an assumption that people are confident with their money and their banking, and education around finances often comes too late as well sometimes. So by the time support does show up, people may already feel embarrassed about not knowing something, or maybe they're hesitant to speak up about it. So, common feedback we see when we're running financial education workshops in schools, it's the teachers that are saying, "Oh, I wish I had learnt this when I was at school," kind of thing. And for those who have also experienced other barriers to access, that hesitation can be enough to really step back from engaging with banking altogether. So equity and belonging happens when people feel safe to ask questions and confident that they'll be supported and not judged. So that's where education and care really matter, and it's really important in that space. So when we do run our workshops, while the kind of communities that we work with and the life experiences are different, the fundamentals of financial well-being are the same for everyone. So things like needs versus wants, creating a budget, some kind of money system, setting goals, that's all kind of universal, no matter the demographic or community group that you're part of. But what changes is what you as an individual define as a need versus a want, what sits inside that budget, how a money system needs to be structured to help your day-to-day, but also achieve those long-term goals. So, that's where inclusive education really matters as well. So through our program, or the Managing Money program that I look after, we work with the disability community and disability support groups that bring those kind of fundamentals to life in ways that make sense for the audience as well, for the participants. We do that by creating, a safe space, so participants feel that they can share their thoughts and their examples. We do it through storytelling. We do it through collaboration. So the learning's practical. It's more relatable and grounded in like real life scenarios. So when that financial education reflects someone's lived experience, that's when that confidence grows, and that's when people start to feel like they belong as well. So that's the education piece, but it isn't always enough. There is another part, the amazing mahi Tanya's talked to and in leading, and also our financial inclusion team as a whole as well play a really key role in that. So our financial inclusion team support our frontline staff with complex situations. They also work directly with community organisations as well, who can contact us directly when they need extra support as well. The aim isn't to pass people around as such, or apply a one-size-fits-all solution. It's more to reduce the burden on the customer, especially during moments of stress or vulnerability, and make sure support flexes to the person and not the process. So, and also what we consistently see, and to talk or Peter, what he mentioned earlier, it's the how we support or how that support is delivered is just as important as the outcome. So making sure the customers are being listened to, they're not feeling rushed, not having to explain themselves again and again. So those experiences help build trust and confidence, which are essential for people to engage. So one of the ways we've done that is by creating like an extra care flag, which is a note that we can apply with the customer's permission to their accounts, so they don't need to explain their requirements every time they contact us. And that's kind of just one of the initiatives that we've rolled out. But again, as Tanya mentioned, we also know that this work is ongoing and there's a lot more to do. So, we do know that education needs to happen earlier, that confidence piece that shouldn't be assumed, and support needs to remain easy to access, trusted, and consistent as well. So for me, the role of banking and fostering equity and belonging is about building financial confidence before things go wrong, and standing alongside people with care and dignity when extra support is needed as well. So when we do that, banking starts to feel a bit more inclusive, and a place where people are supported, understood, and able to take part with that confidence. Cool. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you for that. Also, extremely good timing. You didn't even need to steal the extra 30 seconds. I've learned something about Westpac. All have excellent time management skills. So we've got our next panelist once I learn how to change windows. So our next panelist is Jake Lilly, Senior Policy Advisor for FinCap. So you've got 5 minutes to provide your initial statement. By the way, if you're an attendee, make sure to put questions in the Q&A. The more controversial, the better. Anyway, so uh, Jake Willie, the question that I have for you um, is the same question. What is the role of banking in the process of access and belonging for disabled people? Jake, you can take the floor.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jake ahau, he uri ahau no Te Aotearoa, no mua upoko hoki. I work at FinCap. The simple answer to the question is all banks, and I stress all banks, should see themselves as having a role in inclusion and belonging for people with disabilities. And just that access piece in general, everyone should have access to banking services because they're essential to participation in our community. And I think I'll really focus here, based on the discussion so far, on what we need to see from our regulators, so that we can get to a point where we're not having to worry about access to banking and we can get on and do the things in life that we want to do. I work at FinCap and we support just over 700 financial mentors who are offering free support, working with anyone who's out there and thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to get my hands on the essentials, maybe because of a financial difficulty issue. And that could be because of not having the funds you need, or it could be just things aren't connecting as they should to access those essentials. Or if you're in a situation where you're not sure how you might address debt that's looking unmanageable. The financial mentors I work with, they take a holistic approach to a person's life. What do you want to achieve? What are the multiple financial challenges you might be facing, and what are your options for achieving the things you're looking to achieve given those? What mentors get really frustrated with is when someone comes in and they can't get access to the essentials. And my work focuses on how we can avoid financial issues in the first place, or make sure there's always those paths to resolving them. So the issues with access that we see aren't unique to banking. We don't have a right to get power supply in this country, for example, as well, and that comes up. But one of the first things a financial mentor will do is sit down with someone and work out what someone's financial position is with a budget. And you'll hear from financial mentors often, you can't budget nothing. And maybe you don't even have a situation where you have nothing, but you don't have a bank account. So it's very hard to work out what your financial position is. I think I stressed at the start here, all banks need to see themselves and need to be taking initiatives in this space. I think that's really important because particularly where things aren't going very well, where there are multiple issues at play and someone has to use a lot of resources to do what many of us would do every day in 30 seconds to a minute, say, go and get a taxi down to a bank to try and open an account, only to find it's not open or the paperwork's not right and they need to repeat quite an expensive process again despite not having the money to book another taxi, all sorts of access issues that come up. It needs to be the bank that they approach or the business that they approach to access something essential that does something to make sure they're going to get that access. So really, really good that we're getting initiatives from individual businesses that assist people and make sure that things are accessible, but it needs to be universal, and that's where regulation comes in. I've jumped a bit here, but I just wanted to say that we've been involved in the Reserve Bank processes. There's already been some discussion around that. One that's currently live is a proposal to keep the cash system alive, and that's to set minimum standards around where there are ATMs where you can deposit and receive cash and get it in decent denominations, we're really supportive of that, and will likely suggest some further minimum standards around the amount of people being actually available to help someone if something's not going right when you get to that ATM site. But there has been, and there's been mention of the work of the Council of Financial Regulators on what is now proposed to be a hybrid model where the regulators help, but it's still voluntary in agreement with banks that there is access to a transaction account. We're going to keep a really close eye on that, because we hope that we get to a situation where that example I mentioned, someone ends up having to take a taxi with the last money they have on hand. They get there and it doesn't work. We're hoping that those issues will be resolved from this initiative, but we do believe it might come to regulation, and we had the same position as the Banking Ombudsman expressed before, that there needs to be a mandatory minimum standard for access. And just lastly, I'd like to mention with that too, it's important what the features of that are kept up to date to what we practically need at any one time. Really, at the moment, you don't see everyone getting access to, say, a debit card, and noting those issues with surcharge that have been talked about. But you need a debit card for most online transactions, and particularly, if you need to buy groceries online for whatever reason, perhaps you're sick and have an infectious period where you need to isolate, whatever it is, that's not often something we've heard talked about. So
20 seconds.
Lots more work to do in this space. Thank you for the prompts, and I'll leave it there.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Very insightful. So we've got our final panelist to provide their initial statement. Again, a reminder for our audience, please put lots of questions in the Q&A. We desperately need content. So yeah, our next panelist, Dr. Annette Rotherham, research clinician, specializing in aphasia, speech language therapist at Health NZ. You've got 5 minutes. The question we have for you is, what is the role of banking in the process of access and belonging for disabled people? Take it away.
Oh, kia ora koutou, ko Annette Rotherham aho. I'm a speech and language therapist and aphasia researcher, and I want to thank Access Matters for inviting me to be part of this panel. I was involved in the Westpac research, and the ideas discussed in that research informed the report to improve the accessibility and sense of equity in the banking system. And it's been really exciting to see some of those changes and recommendations from that report put into action. Today, I want to raise awareness of communication accessibility, and it was really great to hear Nicola Staddon raise, some of those examples of difficulties people have with communication and different communication styles and different communication needs that people have. But I think that there's still a long way to go for everyone to understand how simple it can be to actually meet those needs for people with communication difficulties. So communication accessibility ensures that everybody, including people with communication difficulties, can be understood and participate fully in their community, workplace, and in business interactions. I work with a broad range of people with communication challenges, and often speech language therapy goals try to address the communication barriers people encounter with their daily activities, especially with banking. So if we look at a definition of communication accessibility, I've taken a nice one from Speech Pathology Australia and their communication hub, which indicates that communication accessibility means removing barriers to communication so that all individuals can express themselves and understand others, regardless of their communication method or ability. I like to call these removal of barriers communication ramps. It's about creating environments where people are treated with dignity and respect, and where alternative communication methods are welcomed and supported. This includes face-to-face, on the telephone, online, and with written communication. It may also involve assistive technologies, easy read formats, or visual aids. People face challenges in all aspects of banking when they have communication disabilities. And we've heard today about challenges with opening bank accounts, and I have seen this firsthand. Reading bank statements can be really difficult for people, the size of the font, the busyness of the page. Using ATMs has also been raised, and EFTPOS. Telebanking can be impossible for people, and expressing needs and getting help can also be a challenge with our banking systems. People may need to use a support person to talk to the bank. However, there are often security issues with that, and banks may ask for people to actually activate their enduring powers of attorney to support a person's decision making with financial matters. And for many in situations that shouldn't have to be taken to that level of legal sort of implementation. People with communication needs, such as aphasia and dysarthria, which is likely to be between 50 to 100,000 people in Aotearoa, can be mistaken for having intellectual or cognitive disability, and banks may not accept their signatures or their requests due to their communication differences. We need banks to accept all methods that people communicate and how they may be able to prove their identity. Some of the communication formatting that can be support, particularly people with aphasia, that includes signage, instructions on ATMs, bank statements, and websites. Aphasia-friendly formatting includes the use of larger fonts, like a minimum of size 14, and also fonts that are actually quite clear and easy to read. The use of short phrases, bolded key information, and the use of icons and pictures to reinforce a concept. Some of the communication ramps that may support people when using the banking system that are reported by people with lived experience. The number one is time. Allow some extra time to communicate. When people feel rushed or under pressure, their communication is harder. Speak a bit more slowly and keep your language simple. Avoid double negative questions and complex language structures. Ask questions that can be answered with a yes or a no. Offer a quiet space for communication.
20 seconds.
If people are using a communication aid or they need to talk, a one-to-one appointment may work better. And also allowing that support person to be there to help, which Westpac, the report has addressed this, which is great, and standardising ATM screens. So those are just some of the practical ideas in this doer panel that I have wanted to contribute and to raise that awareness of communication disability. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I was very aware of the irony. You were discussing giving people more time to communicate while I was rushing it along. That was a bit funny. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're at the Q&A portion of our panel. So we have until 10:55, I believe, for Q&A. So I've got a question here that says, much of the discussion so far has been on the banking needs of disabled people, with little focus on parents and family and whānau, who may have greater struggles acting as agents. What innovations, alongside a flag in our notes, has Westpac developed to make life easier for agents whose disabled loved ones have anxiety for going to a bank, as well as the barriers to agency like lack of ID, no official signature, having carers making payments on their behalf? Would someone from Westpac like to have a go at that question?
Yes, Tania speaking, and Jared is here to add as well. It is definitely something that we have heard about. I don't know if you've heard of the Youth Transition Expo. It's the biggest expo in New Zealand, one of the biggest, and we went along last year, and it was very much that conversation with caregivers and parents, and very concerned about their kids transitioning from, into adulthood. So I guess the one thing, and so it's on our mind, very much on our mind, but we are required to comply with those legal and court-ordered arrangements, but that doesn't mean being rigid, and that's the word that we've heard a lot of today. So the expectation is to do the right thing, but in a flexible and human way. And so where standard processes don't work, so in that scenario, we do have exception and escalation processes to support better outcomes while we're trying to find innovative and better ways to address these things. So our frontline teams can draw on our extra care team support if there's any sort of complex situations, rather than being stuck at a computer says no scenario. Also, hopefully with our disability confidence training that our teams take part in, there is just that time to show up with empathy when these questions come up or these situations arise, and that time is taken. People can sit down and have a conversation about needs and work their way through it. And I guess that's what we're hoping is happening, but may not always happen. Over to you, Jared, if you want to embellish any more on that.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Tanya's saying, that piece of really having that conversation early, understanding exactly what those requirements are, and then seeing what we could do to support, and we'll kind of mold and shift depending on what we need to do to make sure that we are meeting that customer's requirements. I know we've done a lot of work in that kind of EPI space as well, to really simplify that process both for the customer and our staff as well. I mean, there's some a lot of kind of complex terms and things that come up in that, and they're always different. So we've got kind of an escalation pathway for that as well, just so that everybody's feeling confident. And that was the kind of thing we heard when we're asking is confidence internally and externally. So the customers are saying, hey, we want to do this. Our staff are not quite sure how it should be applied or what to do next. So having somewhere that they could go, some additional training that we've rolled out, it's all kind of helping to streamline that process a lot better than it has potentially been in the past. So there definitely is a lot of work happening in this space to ensure it's inclusive and works really.
Very good to hear. Do any of our other panelists have anything to chip in on that one? Or should I move to the next question?
Yes, I know it might be seen as adversary, but at times it is best. Financial mentors find when we get into similar issues as a representative. If it's all not working, if you can't find the right door, to go to the complaints team. And I do think that really does help, because it's the solution that's found through that process can help redesign the whole system.
Very true. I know that I've used the complaints system before and it worked. It worked pretty well. Someone listened to me. So we've got more questions. So the next question in my screen is someone that works in Health New Zealand. They often have patients with high-level injuries from all sectors of society. Access to banking is a necessity, even when in hospital, particularly for long admissions in hospital and for life-changing injuries. Identification processes are often impossible to navigate on the phone. Just to highlight that an outreach service into the community, including hospitals, would enable better engagement and support for our clients. So do any of our panelists have any thoughts on that one? Oh, yes, Annette.
Well, kia ora. I totally agree. I, as a health professional, I work in hospitals and I work in the community, I think, and also residential care, people in residential care, elderly people, would really benefit from the ability to have someone come and support them to work through some of those challenges that when you can't get into the bank. But also, maybe is there ways for the banking system to use an online meeting to check on those people in the hospital? Could that be a solution as well? Because an outreach service could be a fairly big job to meet an awful lot of people in hospital. Yeah, so I'm just wondering if what would the banking system do if you could have more online interaction where you're face to face online?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, many might look at a solution like that and say, oh, an outreach service would be costly. But when you consider actually that being an early intervention to what could come instead, it's really saving time. Costs might fall in different places, but it could prevent further hospitalization. It could prevent so many things. So I just encourage people to look at it that way. We often sort of come up against this idea, and I know banks are often working with quite difficult systems in balancing security. But an approach that says, hang on a minute, could we actually avoid a cost? Are we helping with access is really helpful. I also just wanted to mention as another alternative to that online meeting solution is my observation when living in Australia and working on similar issues was that there was a lot more consent over the phone through recorded consents rather than the requirement constantly for a signature. And it's always puzzled me that a signature is so leaned upon when most of the time we're just all doing a bit of a squiggle. When you get to those voice messages recorded when we got into like quite legal dispute sort of territory, you could tell a lot more around someone understanding the disclosure or not, whether or not they had the ability to ask questions as they went through the legal processes that are there for a good reason. It just seemed a much better solution for a lot of people. So I'm still a bit puzzled as to why I don't see it more often as a solution. Yeah.
Thanks for that. We've only got about 4 more minutes of Q&A, so if the answer can be pretty quick. Jared, would you like to go?
I was just going to say, I mean, from an education perspective, we do really talk, again, kind of talking to the EPOA and kind of setting something up ahead of time, not when it's needed, but trying to get a lot of those things in place can help a lot in that situation. But again, from the kind of our financial inclusion extra care team as well, I do know it's not something that happens all the time as such, but we do look at each situation and its own merits and try to figure out the best way to support. And we have had staff go out to the hospital to see what we could do in that situation. So, like I say, it's not a blanket approach. I won't say that, but again, when we are looking at every individual case, we will just try to figure out what the best way forward is, and if that's the outcome, then that's the outcome.
So I'm going to move us to the next question. We've got about 3 more minutes, so not much time. How accessible is home ownership or borrowing in practice for people with disabilities whose main income is the supported living payment? So that's the main benefit for people with permanent and severe disabilities. Or if they're on ACC, loss of potential earnings. So basically, can they get mortgages if that's their main income? I'm also aware, we probably can't, provide financial advice. But can anyone give general vibes around that question in the panel? Yes, Jake.
I would say with this one, I I'd anticipate, based on the framing of that question too, we all know that would be quite difficult, and housing affordability is a big issue across the board. In saying that, if you're not sure where to start, could I recommend my colleagues at Money Talks as a place to access the right person to talk to about that, be it a financial advisor, or if you're looking at resolving debt to get to a place like that, my colleagues in the financial mentors. That's Money Talks. You can text them on 4029 or go to the moneytalks.org. Moneytalks.co.nz website.
Very cool.
And just to back that up, it's a fantastic question, and I'm just starting to look into that space and do a lot of research about home ownership and accessible housing, but I haven't found out if we've got data on the number of applications from people, but I can keep that, and it is on my radar. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I mean, given the supported living payment is like $400 a week, I wish I could find a house that I could afford on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bit of commentary on the low benefit rates. We should be able to have basic access to housing. So we're pretty much at time for the Q&A. So I guess at this stage, I hand back to our wonderful MC Rebecca.
Thanks, Callum. Thank you for moderating, and thank you to all our panelists for contributing and sharing. It's certainly as a parent of a person with disabilities and an intellectual disability, something that we're going to have to grapple with in the near future. And there really are some big challenges around banking when you have somebody who can be capable but needs some support in that to scaffold, and the law really doesn't allow for the sort of nuance that is often needed in terms of being able to support and encourage independence and being able to make supported decisions. So I look forward to seeing how this progresses in a way that really does support these ideas around self-determination and autonomy. There is a survey link that's just been dropped in the chat, and we always encourage our audience to fill out the survey and to share. This is really important for us to collate, and we take it back to our funders and share with our funders. So we really do appreciate you taking the time to fill that out and to answer the questions. We are just on closing, so we've done amazingly well to get through a huge chunk of speakers and information in our 2 hours allowed. Big thank you to our moderators for really keeping us on track and our timings, so well done. I will now, just as we opened up with the karakia and open the space with the karakia, I'll now close with the same, just as a way of acknowledging the end of the seminar and transitioning us back into our everyday lives. So he inui tātou. He karakia whakakapi. Kia whakairea te tapu. Kia wātia ai te ara. Kia turiki whakataha ai. Kia turiki whakataha ai. Haumi e hui e tai ki e. And in English, restrictions are moved aside so the pathway is clear to return to everyday activities. So ngā mihi, thank you for joining us. We wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Ka kite.
Ka kite, kia ora.